Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Kozyev, and I'm the head of analytics at Panda. In this presentation, I'd like to cover the first steps of developing an intelligent user acquisition system. I've seen a lot of topics related to that type of systems that can automatically create and manage campaigns. To be honest, these systems has been already developed by Facebook or Google Ads. We all know that auction systems that can adjust to our needs. But as we all understand, Facebook and Google Ads auction systems are built to satisfy the most customers, and we want to build something that can maximize our profit without everyday specialist attention. At Panda, we haven't developed that type of system yet. Whoa, I've imagined that half of the audience will just stand up and go out, but it seems like those type of persons just not here to begin with. So now then, I'd like to talk about what are the initial steps for developing that type of systems. What routine tasks can be done via intelligently built systems, and how to improve UI management with these were first steps. I'm sorry, this is my first time giving a speech in English, so I hope you will give me an excuse for some mistakes. So, before moving on to our intelligent system, let's take a brief overview of UI managers' everyday tasks. Having been involved in UA for almost a year and talking to my colleagues in the industry, I've managed to create the list of common tasks. Yeah, I think most of you here are common with them. I'll just want to mention that I'm splitting working with UA units at Facebook and Google Ads and UA units on advertisement networks. I'm doing this because, Facebook and Google Ads, as I mentioned, develop the auction systems that can adjust to our needs, and usually it takes time to any adjustment that we made on Facebook, for example, to take in and system to assimilate it. As a separate point, I'd like to mention that working with advertisement networks like Unity or Iron Source usually comes with another problems. They lack strong adjusting inner mechanism that can be used in our needs. They only adapt to conversion rates of creatives. As such, we do not expect a dramatic increase in quality of users with time with such networks. Nevertheless, it can happen, sure, but in common, we do not wait for it. The third part that I want to mention is testing, for example, creatives, keywords, audience, anything you want. There is no doubt that testing is very, very important, and being done right are very costly. We will talk about it in a minute. Great. Now we've outlined a few key everyday activities for UA Manager. Let's try to build an intelligent approach to it. There is no arrow, but you can imagine it is here. What do I mean under intelligent? I've seen this word already 5th time, I think. As you will see, we're talking about systems that can do things not relying on guesses, like, this creative is good because it looks good, I like it, and there are a lot of poof, poof, piff, puff on the creative. No, we will be looking only at statistical approach, strong mathematical solutions. And, of course, experience. Sadly, it is broken, so experience is a tricky one. We will touch it a little bit later. So what can we do with our intelligent approach from that slide? Of course, the last one, working with partners, I mean, making calls with the network managers, participating in conferences. You see, in Panda, we've done the thing, so I'm just staying here and waving with my hands just to the system tell you about everything. Of course, I'm joking. The last point is almost impossible, not almost impossible at the current state of the science, and it is absolutely impossible once again. But we can go with testing and blacklisting on advertisement networks. I'll touch more deeply in each point a little bit later. So, creative testing. Let's start with it. As I said, it has a purely statistical solution. How it is done, you will know, I think, but I have to just introduce the first steps. Well, once again, groups broke, but you, I hope, have an idea. Let's choose Facebook as a playground for creative testing, just because it allows us to very easy split audience into the two parts, for example. Let's start with two. And for the first part, we will show new creative. For the second part, we will show old, well-performing creative, for example, in USA. Well, after that, we will wait some time, get the results, ask analytic, and he will say, well, old one is worse than new one. Great. Problem is, if, for example, you want to test new creative against old one in the USA, you will have to spend a lot. I mean, a lot. About 2.5 for each creatives. I'm based on our metrics. So if you want to go deeper into details how this price is calculated, has been calculated, catch me after this lecture and I'll go deeper into details. And we will know something about creative, but there are a lot of problems behind that scheme. As you can see, there are a lot of steps. I will not go in each step just because this is lecture not about A/B testing, but if you want to talk about them, catch me later once again. It's kind of transition to that song, you know, call me maybe. So this is a lot of work. You already get the idea. We can do this once or twice, but in Crazy Panda we develop about 15 to 20 creatives per month. And that amount of work is too big to handle. Too big to handle if we want to handle it. So, how to do this? Well, intelligent approach, once again, let's divide our creatives by quality. Sadly, maybe it's our low expertise, but I think it's common in the industry. That most creatives are bad ones, and we're looking for good ones, best ones, not even good ones, best ones. The whole idea of tests is not about getting precise knowledge of the target metric for a creative, let's say conversion from impression to installs, if it is our prime metric, but instead finding the great, best ones. From my experience, it takes from 20 to 50 creatives to get an ultimate winner, as you see here, 2%, which can be, by winner I mean a creative which can be used to acquire, let's say, 100,000 installs. Really a lot of users. At least I mean. For bigger companies, it's 1 million installs, something like that. So we do not need those accurate tests for the most of our creatives, and we can start with really, really rough ones. So what will we do? We will start with rough tests to filter out bad creatives. There will be a lot of tests. We will have to manage them, but, well, they are rough. They will cost like 10 times less, and we can go after that and see what creatives can be, not are, but can be good ones. And then we will do accurate tests to classify good creatives and best creatives. It will save us about $1,500 per test. So, well, price will be quite affordable now. So how to improve? Let's go even deeper into intelligent approach. There are some solutions. Humankind always finds a way to make its life, our life, easier. These statistical techniques can help us with spending further. You see, we cannot just look at the test, but we can stop them once we already know that creative is not that good as we need. So we can just drop it, stop the test in the middle of the test, but again, you cannot, in classic approach, stop the test. I'd just like to mention it. But with these solutions, you can, and it will save us some more money, even something like half of the existing money for A/B testing. These approaches, however, introduce even more micromanagement. From this point onwards, you most certainly want to create some system or service that can handle the testing for you. This is an automated approach. At first, I wanted to talk about building such a system, but then I realized that my presentation will be looking like that. So let's go to the second matter of interest, network sources blacklisting. First of all, some quick wisdom. Network is a pile of sources. Each source may be good or bad for us. Again, very quick classification. And under good ones, I mean, under some circumstances we can buy from the source, and bad one, no circumstances can lead us to profitably acquiring users from that source. Easy. Now, after some manual work, we can see that part of the sources are going to be good and part are classified as bad ones. 1-0 easy task for some automated system, to be honest. There is one more reason to delegate that decision to an automated system, at least in part. Most networks consist 10,000 of sources, very much. And as you can see, as you can imagine from the previous testing part, it is also testing, to be honest. Precise mathematical tests cost a lot, and we cannot afford them. Maybe if we are like big company, we can, but I think we cannot. We cannot at Crazy Panda. So, I'm sorry. Next step for us is hugely dependent on how many sources we usually classify as bad. I believe that it really depends on our game genre, setting, so on, but at Crazy Panda, we classify as bad at least 90%. 90, most of the sources are bad. So we do not want to precisely test them again, going back into creative testing. Once again, before building an approach to the problem, let's start from the basics. What can we measure? Contrary to the previous problem, where we could measure only one metric, here we can go with, a lot. External data, impressions, clicks, search genre. I will go deeper into detail why it's important with some example in a minute. And internal data. Installs, list of events. Well, for example, you all know something like completing tutor, reaching certain level, making a first payment. These events are really familiar to you. And the last one is benchmarking. Benchmarks is probability of event, for example. Percent of users usually reaching certain level, for example, 10 level 10 in an app. And the second one is cost of event. The second one is especially useful if we buying users from really different sources. You all know that some sources can give us really cheap results, but with low conversion rates and low probability of events. But some can be really expensive and give us really quality users, really good users with high conversion rates. To be able to compare these two types of users, we have to use cost of event instead of probability of event because it's not representative in that case. So Events and benchmarks. Next step, sorry, I just mentioned that I will go into source genre importance. For example, at Crazy Panda, we develop some mid-core games. Maybe somebody is familiar with them. But how can we use source genre, for example? For us, for mid-core games, hyper-casual games is usually a bad sources. Usually, most of them. So, of course, we can have a UA manager who will sit down 24/7 and will ban them as he see them. But to be honest, it is manual, mundane, and really not interesting work. So we can give it to some automated type of system. If we can gather the bundle ID or source genre right from the network, we can ban them as we see first impressions, not even installs. We will not spend on them at all. And there are a lot of hyper-casual games, you know, a lot. And they are quite big sources. That is not always good for us. Okay, next step. Next step is exactly what UA managers usually do if there are somebody here. Commonly, most of you have a so-called event funnel. For example, you single out 3 events, completing 2 to reaching level 10, if we say about that, and making first payment. So, okay. And this is a funnel example we're talking about. These events are conversions, something that can only occur for the user only once, and maybe do not occur at all. If a user cannot achieve reaching level if user do not complete a tutorial, he will not certainly completing level 10. And all users that completed level 10 are completed tutorial, has completed tutorial, sorry. Now you consequently check your funnel steps and look at the results. Maybe on some step source will prove that it's bad or good, and you will, for example, blacklist it or whitelist it. But we all know that getting like 0 pairs from 5 users is not a problem. It is not a problem. Captain Obvious, okay. I'm sorry, I mean benchmarks. Benchmarks is there to the rescue in that situation. For example, baseline conversion rate into reaching level 10, I'd like that event, is 40%. It means 40% of our users will reach level 10 in our app. Great app, interesting game, good. If we acquire from the source 10,000 users, we will have so-called confidence interval. So at least 39% will be good, will be considered as good conversion rate. For 1,000 users, you see 37, and it drops. So the great idea here is with dropping the amount of users, we will drastically decrease our estimates, and for each amount of users, there are their own confidence levels. This is very important. So we cannot create benchmark once. We have to create benchmarks on a lot of amount of users, and I will talk about some more examples later. So intelligent approach. As I said, high dependence on number of users, and once again, as I already said, accurate testing is costly, really costly. Meta competition, what is it? Imagine we have 2 events. One is reaching level 10, and the second one is participating in PvP, at least once. And for example, users from our source were really good at reaching level 10, but they do not participate in PvP. Both events are vital to payments conversion. They all vital. For example, we have a PvP game. How do we measure that source? It is a really big problem. I'll cover it in a second after talking about other problems. So the last one is attribution window for conversions. Some users can get to level 10 in their first day in the game, some on the third. So there is a new layer of micromanagement. We have to build benchmarks. This is what I just talked about. We have to build benchmarks not only for event, but for time of that event. For the first day reaching level 10 for us, good reaching level 10 for us will be 10%, on the third day 40%, and maybe in 28 days it will be 50%. Different points. Good news, everyone. I know statistics have solutions to problems with benchmarks. Statistical approaches that I already mentioned, like, Bayesian A/B testing, some sort of statistical tests can solve that type of problem, and they can do it with any type of benchmark, as UA manager usually is not able to compare every time with correct metric. They have limited amount of time per source. Automated system can do it manually on the fly for each source, each second if you want, at any time. It is not a human. Good news. As for metrics competition, really interesting problem. I'd like to show a weighted metric solution. I will speak about it in a second. Sadly, I will not have a time to go deeper once again. If you want to go deeper, catch me somewhere on the stage, and we will talk about problems and solving and more complex decisions that I will just introduce. It is baseline. So, example, we have 3 metrics, those conversion rates. Sadly, they just broke out, but, well, formula here is to scare you. Okay, let's cover this issue. This is a so-called precision of metric. How many users completed that event convert into our target metrics, for example, pair. And we can use that precision for these 3 metrics that are not in the same funnel. As I said, reaching level 10 and participating in PvP. For example, PvP do not grant experience, we do not progress then participating in PvP, so, well, they are not really correlated to each other. How can we use precision? We can use it as a way to calculate aggregated metric for those metrics. Of course, we can just take the third metric and go, but weighted metric, so-called synthetic metric, will usually do better for us. Usually, not always, I'd have to mention. This is the easy solution. It does not require any mathematics, statistic, anything. You just build more, better approach to some type of metrics that are not in the funnel. You increased your participation. So there are a lot of approaches. Using more and better weights, building machine learning models, automatically test sources, a lot of them. Well, even predicting LTV is the same way. I hope that intelligent classification of sources comes with really complex issues, but I hope you will have an idea after that lecture about how to handle them, and if you want to go deeper, once again, into details, catch me later. It is quite short lecture, and I'm not able to put a lot of practical details into it, just to give you an idea what to start from, how to get results from the scratch very fast, and develop fast working models that can obviously, they will not do user acquisition for you, but they can handle a lot of mundane manual work.